Welcome everyone to episode one of Blaze and Glaze, where I get blazed and give some MMA glaze. So I'm already blazed. Let's just get right into it. UFC 314 is this weekend, and I'm gonna start with the main event: Volk versus Lopes. Look, Volk is gonna win this. I think he's gonna show that there is still some stuff that Lopes needs to learn, and I think that it's not gonna be the easiest fight for Volk, but I do think he's going to win. I want to take into account the fight that Lopes had against Movsar Evloev and the fight that Lopes had against Dan Ige. So these are both fights where, Lopes didn't look the hottest, especially after the first few rounds. Lopes loses his steam. And what was something in common with both of these fights? Lopes ended up on his back with his opponent hovering over him, raining down shots at Lopes. And Lopes didn't really have a big answer to it because at this point in the fight, he's already gassed, right? Volk is the GOAT at hovering over you and shooting you with every single thing in his arsenal, whether it's, the left hand, the right hand, the hammer fist, the elbow. He's going to throw every single thing possible at you if he is hovering over you. That is just a fact, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't reach out to try to grab his arm and put it into some sort of submission. You can't do anything like that. He knows how to stay 1 centimeter away from the submission at all times, no matter how close you get to thinking you can submit him, you aren't actually going to be able to. He just knows how to stay out of things like that. I personally think this is it's too much for Lopes. Yes, Lopes has a chance to catch Volk at the beginning of the first or second round, when he's throwing those hang, 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 those super aggressive little hyena punches that Lopes throws. And if one of them connects, you're done for. Yes, I agree. He can definitely do that. He has the puncher's chance, but everyone has the puncher's chance. And I'm not going to give the fight to Lopes just because he has that chance. I think Volk definitely is much more reliable here to pick, and I think he's going to show that he was the champion for a reason. Next, we have Patty versus Chandler, and I have to say that Patty is definitely going to win this by plot armor. I don't think that Chandler can find that shot on Patty's chin to put him out, and I personally believe that is the only way that Chandler's going to win. Hear me out. Patty is definitely submitting Chandler if they go to the ground and he's given any opportunity. I just think that's how it's going to be. Yes, you can say, well, Oliveira couldn't even submit Chandler. Oliveira didn't really have a chance to submit him in the first fight. They were kind of just throwing back and forth, and Oliveira ended up winning that in the second round. But in the most recent fight that Oliveira had with him, I personally don't think Oliveira was looking for the submission. He kind of seemed like he was in a comfortable state where he could just keep beating on Chandler until the bell rang. But I personally think that in Patty's case, he's going to be looking for every single angle, every single little slip up that Chandler does on the ground. Patty's going to be looking for the submission right away. And let's say that Chandler survives the submissions because he's had his back taken before, but he was able to survive. Let's say that he survives the submissions and it goes all the way to decision. I just don't think the judges are going to give it to Chandler. I don't think the UFC is going to let the judges give it to Chandler. Patty is just such a big star, and he kind of needs this win to rocket him into a top 5 fight for his next one. I personally think that the UFC wants to push this star that is Patty Pimblett, and they are not going to let him lose here if it goes to decision. So I'll just say that. So for Yair versus Pitbull, I'm not going to go too in depth on this, but I just want to say just off the age gap alone, I'm going with Yair. Pitbull, he hasn't fought in the UFC before. He's literally 37. Like once you get to 35, people are already starting to look at you like, oh, he only has a couple fights left in him. This guy's 37, never fought in the UFC before, and he's going up against the number 5 ranked featherweight, former interim champion Yair Rodriguez as his first fight. I don't think it's winnable for him. That's just all I'm going to say. I don't think anything else even needs to be said. I genuinely, that's the only real thing that you need to take into consideration when deciding who's going to win this. Yair is definitely winning this. And now for the people's main event, Bryce Mitchell versus Gene Silva. This is the fight that I'm most excited for. I'm sure a lot of other people are also most excited for this fight. And this one I'm very torn on because originally, you look at this and you're like, wow, Gene Silva, he's been on a tear. He's got the fighting nerds aura. There's no way he's going to lose. They're all undefeated right now. He's just going to run through Bryce Mitchell, just like any other contender. But then you really take a look and Bryce Mitchell has the power of God by his side. When they faced off, Bryce Mitchell looked like it wasn't like, oh, I'm confident that I'm gonna win. His stare was like, there's no possibility that I can lose because God is by my side. Like that is genuinely what Bryce's stare was saying, in my opinion. But let's take a look at Silva. So Silva, he has the aura, he's aura farming, he's clip farming every single time he fights. He gets those crazy knockouts. He has disgusting power in any strike that he throws. Any elbow, knee, kick, punch has disgusting power. He just has that fast twitch muscle in his body that makes those strikes sling forward at light speed until they connect. He has that in him, and there's nothing that can really be done about it. But we've seen him get taken down by Charles Jourdain. Okay, he got taken down by Charles Jourdain, and Charles Jourdain held him there for a little bit. Bryce Mitchell, if he gets you down, you're not getting back up unless you have crazy, crazy good technique and very good willpower. Bryce Mitchell is the type to keep you down when he brings you down. He even was able to hold down Ilia Topuria for over a minute, which is a very ridiculous feat considering we haven't really seen that from anyone else. So can Gene Silva defend the grappling? That's the question. And if you just say, oh, well, of course he can, he's a fighting nerd. Well, that's not really being fair to Mitchell because I don't believe the fighting nerds are able to replicate Bryce Mitchell's grappling. Bryce Mitchell's grappling, in my opinion, is probably the best jiu-jitsu wise in the featherweight division right now. Maybe Brian Ortega, but he's kind of on the fall off right now, so I'm not going to count him. I might have to go with Bryce Mitchell here. I might have to go with Bryce Mitchell. I think that is going to be the pick. I don't think Gene Silva can escape the jiu-jitsu of Bryce Mitchell if Bryce Mitchell is able to bring him down. This is kind of a similar situation with Patty versus Chandler, except not as skewed. Like same thing with Silva and Chandler. They both have that chance to knock the other opponent out cold. And that's most likely the way they have to go to win. But is it going to happen? Is it really going to happen? I'm not sure. I think if Mitchell plays it smart, he will stay on the outskirts and then he'll go in and take him down where the opening allows it. But he's not going to really trade with Gene Silva. And Gene Silva, when he doesn't get that KO early on, he gets a little frustrated and he starts pushing more for these wild techniques and whatnot. That leaves him open to getting taken down. So I'm going to go with Mitchell here. So let's take a look now at Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Dan Ige, your classic gatekeeper, but a little better than most other gatekeepers in my opinion. He kind of has this interesting type of boxing where the moment one of his clean shots lands, it doesn't even look like he puts too much power in it, but you're dropping. Like the moment that lands, you're getting dropped. And that's something I like about 50K Ige. He always brings it. He always has an entertaining fight. And Sean Woodson, honestly, I don't think that mystical power of Dan Ige is going to help him against Sean Woodson. This physicality maxer, 6'2" at 145. How is that even possible? 7-inch reach advantage. And if Sean Woodson was a very mediocre striker, I would be like, okay, well, Dan Ige can, piece him up on the feet. It's still okay. He can get into the pocket. But Woodson is also a very slick boxer. And that just doesn't make for a good combination for Ige to walk into. I don't think Ige is going to be able to take this one home simply because of Sean Woodson's physicality. Last thing that I wanted to cover was this fight right here, Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. You can't see the odds right now, but Hooper is the biggest favorite on the card. I think he's like minus 800 right now or something like that. And I think for good reason. Jim Miller, he's a solid fighter, but he's getting old and he's always been a gatekeeper. I think Chase Hooper is elite level. He can make it to the top 10. He can make it to the top 5 possibly. Even though lightweight is the most stacked division, I still believe that he can do it. He has a lot of time ahead of him. And at the start, he kind of had some rough beginnings. Very, very mid striking. If you watch the fight with Steve Garcia, just got absolutely pieced up. But in his latest fight against Guida, he kind of had more improved striking, and he's been on a little bit of a win streak right now. And he has that sticky jujitsu, the jujitsu where if he's on you on the ground, there's not really anything you can do to shake him off. He's going to find some way to stay on you. He has these long limbs that can reach around your body, wrap around your legs, get that triangle lock going instantly. I don't really think that Jim Miller has anything for Hooper that Hooper hasn't seen before. It's going to be a very orthodox fighter in Jim Miller going against someone who can wrap themselves around you, choke you out, snap your arm in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's going to be easy for Chase Hooper to get this done. And I'm excited to see what he does in the future because he does have potential to do a lot of crazy things. So that's going to be episode 1 of Blaze and Glaze. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with my takes. And please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I will see you guys next time.